my name is Hannah and I'm here to review my 8th trip with EF Ultimate Break, which is the France, Castles, Coasts, and Croissants trip. This was an 11-day trip. It visited 4 different cities and I'm going to run you through it in this video. I usually like to start off my videos just explaining a little bit about EF Ultimate Break and who they are. It is a travel company that serves anyone from 18 to 35 years old. You can go on their site and look at all the different trips. Right now, this is in November of 2024, so they are gearing up for Black Friday sale. That is truly the best time to book, and you'll see a bunch of different trips on sale. They have trips that are short, like 6 days to 10 days. They have trips all the way to 30 to 60 days and everything in between. Just to help you out, full disclosure, I am an ambassador with EF. I love traveling with them so much. I signed up to be one right after my first trip. You can use the code UAHANNAH100 for $100 off your next trip, and that is on top of sale. All right, so let's get into the trip. A little bit different than the ones I've taken in the past. This was a little bit more low-key, focused on history, focused on quaint, small little towns, and it was all in the northern area of France. We flew into Paris, and we had a few days there, and then we got to see the smaller cities in northern France. It was a lot different from like the Bali, Thailand, Spain, Croatia kind of trips I've taken. Honestly, it was such a perfect trip for those that are looking for a little bit different of a type of trip than just beach or partying. I'm gonna take you through a very quick synopsis of the itinerary just so you get an idea of the trip. First day, we flew into France. We got there around 12:30. By the time we got to the hotel, it was kind of late lunchtime. We grabbed a late lunch. We were able to then meet the group for a little walking tour of the city. It was a very, very nice evening, sunny. And then we were able to do a welcome dinner, probably one of the best welcome dinners I've had with EF. It was super yummy and a great spot. After the welcome dinner, we were able to just walk around, do our own thing, and that night we actually had a river cruise along the Seine. It was amazing. You got to see the Eiffel Tower lit up at night, and it was perfect weather, and we got to see a lot of the different buildings that we could look forward to on day 2 of the trip. Then the next day we woke up a little bit early, and the best thing about this trip, something different that I haven't done, we were on a bus tour. So for about 2-3 hours we were just on the bus riding around the city of Paris, just seeing everything from the bus. And you would think like, oh man, I want to get out and walk around and see it. No, it was super comfortable. You could see everything very normally in the bus. And then we stopped for lunch. That afternoon, it was all about Versailles. We were able to visit Versailles, super beautiful, and we got to skip the line, kind of go over on the side. That's the beauty about EF, is that they can book all your tickets for you in advance. You don't have to stand in that long line to wait for tickets. You can get right in. We saw it. It was beyond crowded though. That's the only thing I would say is just heads up when you do go to Versailles, and especially in May when we went, it could be very, very busy. Like I'm talking like walking around like sardines, just kind of walking around, but obviously super stunning, totally worth it. After that, we went ahead and came back, and we had free time for dinner that night. All right, so after Paris, we were headed up north to Normandy. On the way to Normandy, we made a few stops. We took our first bus ride. It was about an hour and a half to Rouen, very charming, and we got to see the cathedral there, which was stunning, walk around, have about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of free time, and then we got some lunch in Rouen. When we got back on the bus, we took about another hour-ish drive to Honfleur. Honfleur is a harbor town, and it is super charming. They have a lot of different colored buildings. Really cool just to be on the water. Our tour director got us a little sweet treat. We were able to have, again, about an hour and a half of free time just walking around some shops. People got some food or snacks, and then we were on our way back to the bus to make our last stop of the day. That was about another 30-minute bus ride, and we headed to a winery, which was really neat. It was just a local, somebody's house and a business that ran out of that, and got to try some fun wines, cheeses, got to sit outside. It was a beautiful day. And then we were headed to our hotel, and from the winery to the hotel, it was about an hour and a half drive. So I will say, as you can see, you can add up all that time. It was quite significant to be in the bus every single day, and you'll see that theme throughout the trip. So it wasn't bad though. After each stop, you kind of wanted to just relax. The bus had Wi-Fi, air conditioning, but it's just something that I wanted to call out for this trip. So we we made it to the first hotel in Normandy that night. It was a really cute hotel, really nice setup. And the thing I will say is obviously with these small towns in Normandy, everything was, you had to walk to everything. It was very small. There was only about 5 or 6 restaurants within the little area. That night, we all went to dinner and we were able to get yummy food at one of the places. And then it was about a 25-minute walk to and from our hotel. And then the next day, we prepared to go to the beaches of Normandy. And this is mostly the reason why we went on this trip. My husband is really into World War II history. We started off, we got to the first Point de Hoc around 8:45 a.m. We were able to explore for about 2 hours. So we were able to kind of walk alongside. This was more so on the cliffs, so there wasn't beach yet, but we were able to see a lot of the areas where the war impacted, especially on D-Day, right? So you got to see the remains of what is in these areas. You got to really reflect and look back at our history and kind of what happened on that day. The one thing I will say is there was a lot of different reading materials leading up to that area, but there wasn't a tour guide on this day. So unless you kind of knew a little bit going into it or wanted to take time to read it, you really probably didn't know really what happened. So the biggest suggestion I would say is to do your research beforehand and kind of understand what happened at different marks of the beaches in Normandy. You will not regret it and it will make your experience a lot better. That's something that my husband and I took away. We spent about 2 hours on the first stop, and then the next stop we took about a 15-minute bus ride over to the World War II museum in Aromanches. Here it was really neat because it kind of painted a really good picture. It had videos, it was a museum, you could walk through it with a little headphone that told you a little bit about the history. You got to see a lot of different artifacts, so that was a really good point. I just wish again we had a little bit more information before the first stop. So that was the second stop. It was a cute little quaint town, so we had a couple hours of free time again to have lunch, walk around, see the different areas, and see the impact the World War II and D-Day really had on this area. Then once we got to the cemetery, it was pretty emotional. It was extremely quiet. Everyone obviously knew the impact here and just how many soldiers were in this cemetery. It was the American side, so we were able to just see white crosses that just went on and on and on and on. Again, just so impactful for what we've learned just throughout our history, and something that I would recommend to go see sometime in your lifetime. It was pretty neat. We saw one of the services there that it happens at the beginning and the end of each day. They just played taps, did a service of folding the flag with the military. It was emotional for all of us. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. So we were so fortunate enough to see that. It was a perfect, beautiful day weather-wise, a day that I will truly never forget. And the next day we went up to heading towards the Brittany coast, and we stopped at Mont Saint-Michel, and this was a really neat place. It was off on a little island where we drove up to it. It was about an hour drive from our hotel. We stopped there, and this was famous for a lot of different things. There was like so much history in this place. A place for prisoners. It was a place for people from the war who were fleeing. There is a church on top. There's many different restaurants. It basically like builds upon each other. So we started on the ground level and walked our way up all the way to the top to oversee area of the Brittany coast that we were going to. So it was beautiful. After that, we were able to drive back, heading towards our next stop, which was Rennes. It was a really cool place. It was a college town. It was another small little quaint town. We dropped our stuff off at the hotel, and then we were able to have a lot of free time walking tours, eat dinner, and just kind of relax and see a little bit more of Rennes and prepare for the next day. The next day we got up a little early and took about an hour bus ride over to Saint-Malo. This is a really cute coastal town. It's a walled city, and it was really influential in the war. It was bombed really heavily. It was on the northern end, and a lot of the soldiers thought people were mostly in this area, when in fact they were actually further east in the northern area. We had a ton of free time on this day. It was one of my favorite stops. It was a gorgeous day, right on the water, so beautiful. The food was fantastic. A walking tour, and then headed back, and that was the best thing. It was like a long day of just a couple stops, and then we got back about 6 p.m. and had like the rest of the evening free. Then I was able to just go across the street. We were able to get some dinner quickly and go to bed at a very decent time. The next day we were headed to the Loire Valley, and on one of the stops we stopped stopped in Tours. So here's the thing though, I started around 9 a.m. and then took about a 3.5-hour bus ride down to Tours. Again, I liked it. I was able to listen to music, kind of do some work because they had some Wi-Fi on the bus. It was really nice to just kind of chill after going and taking a lot of steps each day. And then we arrived in Tours, had like several hours of free time, explored, got some food, just kind of walked around, learned a little bit more about the little town. After exploring all day, we got back to the hotel and then we got ready for an included dinner, which was an amazing dinner. And then we got ready to see a little bit more of the Loire Valley in the second to last day of the trip. We took about an hour, hour and a half bus ride to a castle we were exploring, Chateau de Cheneseau, I believe that was the way to pronounce it. And it was home to many different queens, and its history was just stunning. We got to walk the grounds, see the inside of it, and spend a few hours there, had some lunch there. And we got on the bus, took about a 45-minute bus ride. We're actually able to then stop at another place, Amboise, another kind of stop along the way as we were going into the Loire Valley. We had about, the biggest thing I would complain about is we'd probably have about 3 or 4 hours of free time in this stop. And after a while, it was just kind of like, okay, we've seen everything we needed to see. It was kind of a smaller town, so we really didn't get to see much. We ate a little bit, got some ice cream, hung out as a group, but that stop I would say I'd prefer to kind of shorten up a little bit. After all the day of exploring, we were able to get back to the hotel again at a very decent time. We were back to the hotel about 6:30 and just got a quick dinner at the hotel and then got to bed early because the next day was the last day of the tour, which was so sad, but we were able to get back to Paris, which was one of our favorite cities. Left about 7 a.m. and then got to Paris about 11, so it was almost a 4-hour bus ride. We made a stop in between just for the bathroom and snacks and everything. As soon as we got back to Paris, it was game time because we got in and put all of our stuff in the hotel, and this was like our last day in the big city to see everything we wanted to see before the farewell dinner was like at 7 p.m. We did just that. We went to go see Monet's water lilies, just kind of bounced around, saw everything. The biggest thing I would recommend is getting tickets ahead of time. We were trying to go see a couple different things, and by the time we got there, the line was so unbelievably long. We didn't have any tickets, and it was just our fault. We didn't know what we were going to do that last day, so my biggest recommendation is to get and book tickets ahead of time. By the time we got done, we then met up with the group, had the farewell dinner, got to see a really cool area of France I hadn't seen, or Paris that I hadn't seen before. It was up on a hill, got to see the whole city, watch the sunset, and then got back to our hotel, and the next day flew back home as the last official day of the trip. Now I hope you have a good understanding of the itinerary of the trip. Now let's get into the next topic, which was hotels. Hotels were really nice for this trip. I was pretty impressed. This was a plus trip, meaning that it is upgraded hotels, no hostels. You only have one roommate during the entire time, which was really nice for my husband and I. We didn't have to pay to upgrade the two of us. And let's start in Paris. This was a very nice hotel. It was on the outskirts of the city a little bit, so it wasn't like right in the middle of the city, which was really nice. And it was walking distance to one of the train stations, which was incredible. And we just walked on there, probably about a 25-minute train ride into the city every time, which was like nothing. The good thing about EF is they gave you some metro passes for a couple days of the trip, and we only had to refill one time, and that was a really nice perk of the trip. The second hotel was in Normandy, a very basic, easy hotel. It was nothing special, but it was nice enough. Our AC was working just fine, the shower got hot, and the beds were comfortable. So nice hotel. The next hotel in the Brittany coast, it was technically in Rennes. It was a really nice hotel. It was right, again, near a train station that you got to take anywhere in the city. Rennes was a lot bigger than I imagined. You could walk places, but it was really easy to take the train. Pretty decent hotel. The only thing there was the AC wasn't great. Again, it was kind of mild during the day, like, you know, high 60s, low 70s, but during the day after you've been walking a little bit, you get a little hot and stuffy in the rooms, but we just opened the window and it was really nice. And the hotel, again, was a really nice one. The second to last hotel was in Tours, back in the Loire Valley, and another really nice hotel, really big room, very spacious. Again, hot water, AC, you really can't complain with this hotel. And then after this one, we went back to Paris and actually stayed at the same hotel that we first stayed in, which we were really excited about. It's probably the nicest hotel back in Paris. Another topic is food. It was delicious in every area we went to. Some of the main items were crepes. We ate a ton of crepes, either savory or sweet. We did a lot of the ham and cheese sandwiches. We had a lot of different specialties. They had a lot of chicken, meat, veggies. Ate really relatively healthy through the trip. Felt full the entire time. I think the balance of free time, of trying to find your own areas, and then also that were included on the trip was a really nice balance. Steak frites, I forgot to mention, that was a really yummy one. So I think overall they did really well with providing food when they needed to. It was about half the time, and then about half the time was free time on your own to go find your own meals. Breakfast was included at all of the hotels too. Let's get into the weather. Like I discussed, we went in May of 2024 on this trip. We went, I mean, it was as hot in Paris as upper 70s and as cold as in the 50s by the coast areas. I would say definitely bring a jacket no matter what, and definitely bring a rain jacket and an umbrella. Even if it looks amazing during the day, at some point every single day it did rain, even if it was a light drizzle. So every single day I brought my little umbrella in my backpack, and then I had a little rain jacket prepared on every single outfit, and I swear every single day I used it. Our tour director, Magda, was one of my favorites. She was so sweet, so knowledgeable. She gave us so many recommendations. She was able to let us do our own free stuff, but it was never hard to reach. We could text her for recommendations, and she was just such a sweetheart and did really well with this itinerary. So if you get Magda, you are very lucky on this trip. Packing tips and what to bring. On any international trip, I'd recommend a portable charger, a converter. I think they use Type-C in France. Comfortable walking shoes. We walked 15 to 25,000 steps each day. As far as money goes, I used a lot on my credit card, and a lot was included, so we really didn't have to pay a ton extra on this trip. So budget-wise, I think I spent a few $100 between my husband and I on extra meals, any excursions in Paris, like the museums, any souvenirs that you wanted to buy. Although it says mild activity, you are walking pretty much everywhere, but on the flip side of that, something that I do see in a lot of reviews is it is a ton of bus time. I'm talking at least 2 to 4 hours like every single day in the bus. It wasn't that bad, but I will say that some people did complain about how much time you are on the bus. You did get a ton of free time on this trip. You were back at the hotel at a decent time if you wanted to go to bed early or do your own thing and go out and get some drinks and hang out. With all of that considered, I hope that you consider France, the castles, coast, and croissants on your next trip if this sounds like you. Just a reminder, you can use code UAHannah100 for $100 off your trip. If you want to check out any of my other videos, like I mentioned, this was my 8th trip with EF, so I have reviews for all of my other trips on my channel, so go ahead and check that out. And if you have any other general questions or inquiries, happy to answer. Love representing EF. They're a great travel company. I've been an ambassador for almost 4 years now. Thanks again for watching and supporting, and hopefully you take your next trip with EF. Bye everyone. At the Louvre after hours, and it is just gorgeous. Yep. Wow.
So amazing. High school French coming in handy.
And the sunset and everything. In Paris. I'm like showing how crowded it is. Us waiting for the bus, just getting soaked.